Hey folks, I have a fear of water. Well, more so deep water. The actual name for this phobia that I have is thalassophobia. What does that mean? An intense phobia or fear of large bodies of water. If you have thalassophobia, you may be afraid of the ocean, sea, and large lakes. Some people may deal with a little anxiety about the ocean, but for others, being afraid of the sea can be a bigger problem. I have this phobia, which is odd because I'm also a huge fishing fan. Funny how that works out. Anyway, how does all of this tie into what my channel is about? The Legend of Zelda. In this case, Breath of the Wild, as it's the latest game. Well, recently I watched a video about the Fallout series titled What's in the Oceans of Fallout, and that video inspired me to discuss the same sort of topic, but with my series of expertise, Zelda. We've seen a couple of adventures at sea before and what came with that, but by the time frame of Breath of the Wild, those past adventures are long forgotten history. What's become of the life and secrets deep below the waves of Hyrule by the time of Breath of the Wild? Let's take on my fear together, as well scaring the life out of me, the depths of the sea, ocean, and water in general does intrigue me highly. I'm not joking. When I look at photos that can trigger thalassophobia, my legs begin to tremble. It's like a weird sensation. It fascinates me, but also scares the life out of me. So let's do this. Be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here, and also be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel out. And let's get into this one. Okay, so in this iteration of Hyrule, we are given a massive coastline wrapping around the map from the northeast all the way around to the south. Whilst in game we are limited to how far we can go out, these waters clearly go on for some distance in all directions, and given there are only a few distant islands seen, we can assume this water leads to a proper ocean, which is the waters I am mainly looking at, the deep depths of Hyrule. In the closer regions such as the Faron, Necluda, Lanayru and Akala Sea, we can find a little bit of sea life, from Octoroks to fish. They're here. The waters here are fairly shallow in terms of the sea, but I think that is mainly because we can't dive under the waves in Breath of the Wild, and the developers did scatter some treasure around the coastline. Having these areas too deep would make getting to these treasures impossible. Beyond the explorable area of the game is where the water will get deep, and where we would find all sorts of life and secrets. Eventually to the point of what we've seen before in the Great Sea, which is the first lead that I'd like to follow. In the Wind Waker, we encountered some aquatic creatures in the Great Sea, such as the Sea Hat, Octorok, George, we're calling it George, and the famous Big Octo, the Zelda series version of the Kraken, basically. The two most intimidating and dangerous creatures here are of course Big Octos and Georges, giant Octoroks and giant armoured sharks. These creatures appeared a long time ago if the information provided in Breath of the Wild is anything to go by. When reading the description of rock salt in the game, it references the past adventure at sea by saying that this salt is from the ancient sea, telling us just how long ago this adventure was, meaning these sea creatures were present a very long time ago. But could they still be lurking in the water? Well, in terms of the much smaller end of creatures, I'd definitely say so. Maybe not anywhere close to here, perhaps in a different type of water in a different climate. In Phantom Hourglass, a direct sequel to The Wind Waker, we explore the world of the Ocean King and see very similar creatures, but also a few only seen in this sequel, such as the Eye Plant, Flying Fish, and Eyeball Monster. Whether or not we'd ever see these few Phantom Hourglass exclusive creatures again, I don't know, given this game takes place in another world. Sort of. I doubt that those few are out here. The other creatures on the other hand, we know that Octoroks are definitely still present and unchanged. So sure, the others seen in the Wind Waker could easily be. As for the two big predators from this game, we'd maybe have to venture out pretty far and find them. Or they'd find us. Breath of the Wild 2 expanded map anyone? Point being, they'd still be out there. Sharks and whales in real life are some of the longest existing creatures on Earth, and part of the reason why that is because they live in the water, a home significantly more untouched by people than creatures whose home is on land, and I'd assume this can also be applied to the giant Octo. Whilst also being found on the mainland as well as the sea, if the much smaller Octorok can survive all the way until Breath of the Wild, the giant colossal Octorok could as well. In real life, there are tales and legends of giant sea creatures such as the Kraken, astronomical sized squids, and of course, the Megalodon. Perhaps that's what these creatures have become by this time frame, is what I would say if this was real life. But this isn't real life. This is better. This is a fantasy adventure series that thrives off of creatures like this. My bet is that they're still out there, just in the actual depths of the ocean, like we saw before. Maybe that's why we can't sail too far out. Another past adventure to look at would be Majora's Mask. In the Great Bay area of the game, we saw some honestly interesting sea life. Skullfish, Shellblade, Guarana, Dexy Hand, Desbreco, and the Deep Python. In this adventure, now also considered an ancient time ago, these creatures were a lot closer to shore rather than deep out at sea. They were also a bit more animalistic and vicious as well. In the shores and shallows of Breath of the Wild, we see nothing like these creatures. The environment doesn't appear very different though, especially when looking beneath the waves and seeing the type of environment down here. But nowadays, these shallows are home to less hostile fish. And yummy ones. My bet on these smaller threats of the sea from Majora's Mask is that they either migrated far away from here, or the more likely, they went extinct. They were found close to shore and not in the depths. Now, they're nowhere to be seen in the shallows. Of course, this is talking from the view that the events of Majora's Mask did happen in the same world, and aren't a dream or parallel world as many fans have theorized over the years. Perhaps that is the reason we don't see them anymore. Either way, both ways I think lead to them most likely not being around at all anymore. Outside of those three games, we have seen aquatic creatures appear all over the timeline. Obviously there are the common creatures such as various fish and similar smaller creatures, as well as the Zoras at some points of the timeline, but some games show us absolute Goliath-sized monsters, such as Morphle from Twilight Princess. We don't really know the origin behind this creature, other than it's part Octorok. Morphle is some sort of giant eel kept in captivity. Very small captivity at that. But imagine this thing in its natural habitat. The sea. Twilight Princess took place a long time ago in regards to Breath of the Wild, but like the Big Octos and Georges, I wouldn't doubt that these sort of creatures are still out there lurking in the depths. It's the Legend of Zelda series, the greatest fantasy adventure out there, in my opinion. These bad boys are definitely still lurking. If Lynels can appear in the first ever Zelda game in 1986 and still be around by the latest game, Breath of the Wild, released in 2017, talking in terms of real time here by the way, I doubt that these creatures are out of the series. We just need to be able to get back out there to find them. Or like I said, let them find us. There is of course another giant sea creature to mention, Tantalus, a leviathan, appearing in the first chronological game, Skyward Sword, and for a time shift stone as well. I could see creatures like this maybe having gone extinct, but who knows. The main point I'm trying to make here is that Hyrule's waters and beyond are likely absolutely terrifying to be stranded in, if not prepared. Even with an appropriate ship and weapons, you could still be faced with some serious challenges. I mean, just look at how much this thing dwarfs Link on their King of Red Lions. But it's all a game of chance. The entire spread of this water until the next piece of land is likely massive. Just look at the Great Sea. We didn't even hit a big landmass in that game. Bodies of water can be huge. I'm sure you could happily sail out here and have no problems, but if you did happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, massive, deadly creatures such as the Big Octo, George, and maybe even more could have you for lunch. It's not all bad though. The waters will also be filled with peaceful creatures such as fish, dolphins, whales, and maybe whale-like creatures such as Jabu Jabu. Like in real life, the depths of the waters of the world are mostly unexplored, which whilst making my legs tremble just thinking about how much deep, unexplored water that is, it leaves us with lots to still find out, and that applies to the Zelda series as well. Subnautica inspired Zelda game, anyone? That's what I think could be lurking in the waters of Hyrule and beyond in the Breath of the Wild timeframe. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to drop a wee like down below if you enjoyed, and also consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. Both would make my day. Follow my socials linked below to keep up to date, and as always, a huge, massive, amazing shout out goes to all of my channel supporters. Your support really helps me to make these videos week in, week out, all month long, 365 days a year. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining, then consider supporting via the links below. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.